I'm Ashley. I am a lighter skin caramel complexion person in a very dark room. It would be white if you could see it. I'm she, her pronouns, and I am of extremely mixed descent, but both of my parents are mixed. My dad is Black and Japanese, and my mom is Western European and Black as well. And I come from an extremely impoverished background. From Pasadena, more or less, that's where my roots are. But like my life itself has been very displaced. So I'm kind of, I like to say from like all over from LA County to like the IE, just because I've lived in different places. How about you, Syd?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sydney, and my pronouns are she and her. I am a visibly Black woman. I don't know how to describe myself. And yeah, okay. I'm in front of a virtual background that has a black and white photo of Audre Lorde.
Thank you, Syd.
The CBSUC, when I joined, had this wonderful list of demands put together that kind of, well, not kind of, very much relates to the school to prison pipeline. More specifically, I just kind of like cherry picked the demands that really specifically kind of geared towards it. Kind of starting off with us trying to end the regular presence of law enforcement on community college campuses. Law enforcement, to us, we don't feel like makes campus safer. If anything, it makes it feel more like of an unsafe place. I mean, at least like for me growing up, the police, like I told you guys, like I grew up very poor, so police were never a sense of like, oh, safety. It was more like you're gonna call the police and it's gonna turn into a whole thing, and it could potentially be an unsafe situation to be in. More specifically, when you're like unhoused. And then also we thought we wanted to kind of. Sorry, guys, I just kind of lost my place. Oh, we wanted to kind of like emphasize how communities within campuses can make campuses safe places to be. So kind of like falling back onto community and care and getting people to develop more innovative ways outside of policing systems to, I don't want to say police each other because that seems kind of contradictory to what we're doing, right? But just like to make a safer community for us all. Without violence and oppression. What else? I feel like I might be overlooking something. Syd, are you?
Yeah, so ultimately the idea, oh, you can hear me. Okay, so ultimately the idea when we started the coalition was in response to, everything that was happening this past summer and
Hey, your audio is breaking in and out.
Syd, it might help if you turn off your video actually, because I think like the internet connection's a little bit bad.
Did you catch that, Syd? We didn't get the second part of what she said. Did you hear us? Oh, I think she might be frozen.
Yeah, I just messaged Sydney to let her know that she might need to turn off her video. So we'll see. Hopefully she'll be back.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were kind of trying to call for the removal of like any kind of law enforcement off of campuses, community college campuses more specifically. Obviously, more specifically geared to California community colleges. We came up with kind of like a list of, I guess, solutions you could say if we are able to pull cops off of campuses. So like employing community intervention workers, peace builders, which are not to be confused with peace officers, behavior interventionists, transformative or restorative justice coordinators, trauma enforced counselors, and then like any other support staff that we could possibly, innovate. I feel like through abolition, the human species could kind of be living at its highest potential, because through abolition, we're trying to make sure everybody's taken care of. And when everybody's taken care of, nobody's trying to survive. And when nobody's trying to survive, then we're growing and we're changing and we're evolving. And ideally in a more creative and cooperative direction, because we're all looking out for each other. And something I've been trying to get through to like my college recently, because of some things I've been trying to change there, is like, we're, at least us in community colleges, we're practicing to be society. So why are we not trying new things, being different, being less of the institution and more of the people? And I know that's like a really big ask, but I feel like it's up to colleges right now to kind of set that example and to lead us into the future, because the kids that are coming through right now, people who are my age and trying to go back to school, like we're going to be creating the next society. So I think resistance and resistance to abolition more specifically is a great way to go, and especially to create transformative changes that are going to stop things like school to prison pipeline. Because when we see how well they're working on a college level, usually the rest of the world will follow suit. Well, maybe not the world, that seems like an American-centric thing to say, huh? The rest of at least like the country. Another thing that we were looking to achieve was the divestment of funding from retributive or carceral forms of punishment to help invest in.
Ashley, I'm so sorry, I accidentally unmuted you. I accidentally muted you. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to scare you too.
I was like in the zone right now, so excuse me, sorry guys. But another thing that we were doing was we were trying to get schools to divest funding from like retributive and carceral forms of punishment, invest all those resources more into like supporting a healthy and safe climate for Black community and community colleges. I was kind of like, I'm kind of like going on a tangent, but I was like kind of baffled when like these schools are getting all this money to like help us students get through the pandemic and everything. And then like at Mount Sac, which is the school that I go to in Walnut, they're like giving us free parking passes and doing these things to help us, which is great. But like a week after the period of time when you're supposed to get your parking pass, they're out handing out tickets, like, and they're handing them out like a lot. And so it's like, well, that's kind of contradictory, right? Like, why help us in the first place if you're just gonna push us back anyways? And I don't know, I feel like having more transparency and like, I don't know, maybe just better programming in general, people to hold the schools accountable for what they're saying that they're going to do for us, especially because they're such large institutions. I feel like things get lost a lot. I know that's something that Syd was struggling with, was actually getting these demands to be heard. People were like, she presented them and they heard them, but like they didn't really hear them, you know? Nothing really seemed to take off after that. So we need to find ways to hold our institutions accountable when we call for things like this, because stuff like this could be the future, and we can easily, put a break in the school to prison pipeline. I feel like the first step would be to be getting police officers off the campus. There's no reason for us to be fearing encounters with cops when we're at school, a place of education and higher learning, right? Like, this is supposed to be like in a more evolved state of being that we're in over there, but we're still using, in my opinion, primitive means of punishment and justice to get things figured out, which are actually more detrimental to the student body, because you're incarcerating and losing students sometimes to this system. Whether or not those are students that they necessarily care about, I guess, would be an entirely different conversation. But I feel like this is a good start for us. And hopefully we can get these made into some legislation very soon. I don't know if Syd is here, but if she were, I think she would agree with me. That's all we have to say. We're still a very new group, so I don't have 15 minutes worth of stuff to say.
Hi everyone. Sorry, I was having some difficulty with my connection, but can you guys all hear me fine now?
Yeah,
Yes.
you're good.
Okay, perfect. So basically what I was trying to say is that the BSU Coalition started last summer in response to, everything that was going on, and really that has been going on, but that was definitely the catalyst for it. And it started with BSU Glendale, and at that school in particular, and that's where I attend, we deal with a lot of racism and a lot of issues with the police that we have on campus. And so it got to the point where we were just like, okay, well, what are we going to do? Like, are we going to just continue business as usual? Or are we like, what side of this do we want to be on? And so the idea was that we would advocate for our needs, but if we did it as a collective and we built community with the other BSUs and other organizations, because the CCSF collective is a part of it as well, then we can collectively advocate for the things that we really need. And then the response will no longer be, well, why would we provide you those resources, which is something that was actually said to me. Why will we give you those resources that you're asking for? Or why would we basically meet those demands and you guys only make up 3% of the campus? And so now that we're collectively advocating, we're able to have a little bit more strength behind our asks. And so it was a list of demands, about 10 of them, but the most lengthy one was us demanding that cops be removed from our campus and to end the regular presence of law enforcement there. And then again, across all California community colleges eventually. And so the idea was, in referencing all of the colleges, Clary Acts, and the arrest records and the crimes and things like that, and the alternatives and what those could have been. And so taking those funds, which at our school in particular was like north of $2 million to solve one crime a year, quote unquote crime, and taking those funds and investing them into mental health resources, investing them in, other resources that are going to discontinue harm, to repair the harm that has been caused, and to make it more of a community-centered safety approach versus the carceral forms of punishment that we're currently investing in. And the response that we've received so far has been honestly very dismissive, and it's kind of opened us up to the conversation of, we're addressing abolition in the sphere of, policing and even prisons and things like that, but also what does that look like as far as, higher learning, and how those systems are, directly related and almost mirrors of prisons and policing and uphold white supremacy and all of those things. And so how does abolition apply to our schooling as well? So that's something that we've been, discussing and working on, and that we are definitely committed to finding ways to push that forward. And hopefully, like Ashley said, we can get to a point where we have enough backing where we can push this forward for legislation, so that we're not having to advocate, every year, every time someone graduates and transfers. This is something that is going to be institutionalized.